I think my recommendation to is for him to have some interviews with serious journalists, you among them, a serious journalist, no holds barred, any questions fair, and just sit there and be Joe.
Nancy Pelosi had a very clear message for President Biden today, and he appears to be listening. Tomorrow, the president will meet with Democratic governors for the first time since the debate. And on Friday, the president will sit down with ABC for an extended interview. The goal is to calm panic within Democratic ranks after the debate and reassure voters that he is still the best candidate to beat Donald Trump. My colleague Kelly O'Donnell has more.
Tonight, President Biden's political future at the center of a storm.
We're going to face a tough summer.
As his only public event today focused on extreme weather and emergency management. For 5 days, the president has not answered reporters' questions.
Mr. President, will you drop out of the race?
He has relied on scripted remarks using a teleprompter.
We've invested a record more than $50 billion.
The White House said today it wants to turn the page after a debate performance crisis that some Democrats say has raised questions.
I think it's a legitimate question to say, is this an episode or is this a condition?
Today, the first public call to exit the race from a House Democrat.
We must call on him to give the ultimate sacrifice of saying that he will step aside because that's the best way to save our country.
Another Democrat with a warning.
I just want him to appreciate at this time just how much it impacts not just his race, but all the other races coming in November.
At the White House briefing today,
he had a cold and a bad night. I would not see this as an episode.
Under repeated questioning, Karine Jean-Pierre defended the president as physically and mentally fit.
Is anyone in the White House hiding information about the president's health or his ability to do the job day to day?
Absolutely not.
The New York Times reports that in closed-door meetings, several current and former officials noticed the president increasingly appeared confused or listless or would lose the thread of conversations. New tonight, NBC News reports that first son Hunter Biden joined meetings with the president and senior staff this week in the West Wing. Reaction from senior staff described as, what the hell is happening? The White House had this explanation.
He came back with his dad from Camp David. He walked him into the speech prep, and he was in the room.
With me now, Jennifer Palmieri, former White House Communications Director for President Obama, and Michael Steele, former chairman of the Republican National Committee and former Lieutenant Governor of Maryland. But you know him as the co-host of The Weekend right here on MSNBC. Jennifer, how do you feel about these steps that the campaign is making and just your thoughts overall?
Yeah, so, I mean, this is like... been through not been through quite this, but been in it. And the campaign's a difficult situation. So let me try to say like where I think we are, just as objectively as possible. So I think the campaign has done everything they can do to position the president to get out of this, and now it's up to him, right? They announce on Tuesday he's doing a interview on Friday, right? That sort of locks people in. You're not going to have more people like Lloyd Doggett say he should drop out, because people are going to wait to see how he does in this interview. He has meetings scheduled for tomorrow, the thing with the governors. He has travel scheduled to go to Wisconsin and Pennsylvania later on in the week over the weekend, right? And now it's on him to do well and to deliver. But, I'm not saying he is in a very serious situation. OK, this is a very serious situation. But I think people are wrong on a couple of fronts to jump all over polls as evidence that there is a serious problem from which he needs to be removed from the ticket. We are less than a week away from the actual debate. Right. There are people who were very animated about the CNN poll that had the vice president doing 2 points better than the president, both in both directions against Trump. That's in the margin of error. That poll probably happened 72 hours after the debate. When someone's not a candidate, it's very hard to actually pull their their strength, right? We should be paying attention to numbers around the president. Everyone's going to hate to hear this, but I think it's going to take at least 2 weeks until you have polls that you can actually trust. All right. So, the president's abilities is one question. How it's impacting the race and, whether that means he should leave the race, that's a separate question. And I think we got to wait on polls. And the second thing is I think people have a sense that you can just flip a switch and turn a $2 billion campaign over to someone else. This is a campaign that was built for Joe Biden. OK, so it's not, whoever the successor is, first of all, it's not as if you can just flip a switch because you have millions and millions of dollars of polling and advertising that's all built around telling his story. The vice president is very much part of the story, but if she's a successor, it's going to be a little different, right? And, that takes a long time. The other thing is this successor, whoever it is, if there is one, obviously, right now there's zero indications that there will be, that person needs to be set up for success. How important is that? Okay, pause to think about that. This is not something we rush into. So, you want to make sure that, that person, that the transition, the handoff is done well, even just in terms of introducing them to the public, convincing the public that this is the right choice. So all of that, if and the most likely thing still is the president continues to be the nominee. But if this does happen, this is sort of the sequencing to keep in mind so that this is as orderly and as smart as possible.
Michael, I see you nodding, and I want to be clear to our audience. We are not suggesting that President Biden step aside and someone else were to be chosen. But I want to stay on this last point that Jennifer was making, because lots of folks out there are saying willy-nilly, he needs to move out and somebody move in. Help us understand that. You don't just take $2 billion worth of campaign dollars built for Joe and slide it to someone else. If there were to be another person, you'd need to actually set them up for success. It's not like saying you stepped on my foot, I'm going to choose somebody else for the next dance.
No, it's not. And it's a great deal of effort because whomever that person happens to be, and first I'll just for the record say I think this conversation at this stage is way out of bounds of where this thing ultimately is for a whole host of reasons. But okay, let's play. I think the reality is basically one where you have to look operationally how you do that, how the DNC makes that shift, how state parties make that shift, how candidates in certain states may now be affected by this person at the top of the ticket versus Joe being at the top of the ticket. So there are a lot of variables here for the Democrats that have to go into consideration. You just don't swap out a president, 2 weeks or a month before their convention with somebody else, and then think you're going to run a national campaign against a candidate like Donald Trump. And just one other thing, I was looking here as you were talking before. National head-to-head polls pre-debate had Joe Biden down to Donald Trump 43 to 46. Post-debate, it's 42 to 46. He lost a point since last Thursday. Take a chill pill and understand that a lot of what we saw is already baked in with a lot of Americans. The Washington class, trust me, I know these SOBs better than most people probably should know anything. They hyperventilate at the least unimportant thing, and they go hog wild on it, and they try to whipsaw a narrative out there until everything is taken into consideration and settles, and then you get a better, clear landscape view of where things are. Between Thursday and today, Joe Biden has lost 1 point in average national polling. And so if this was hell on fire, burn the walls down, 10 alarm fire for the campaign, that number would be a hell of a lot bigger than 1 point. So let's see how the president does in the next few days. The American people are the ultimate ones who will decide whether Joe Biden stays or go. That's the conversation he and Jill will have.
Hey there, MSNBC fans. I'm Luke Russert, and be sure to join me, Rachel Maddow, Jen Psaki, Lawrence O'Donnell, Steve Kornacki, Joy Reid, and many more, September 7th in Brooklyn, MSNBC Live Democracy 2024. Click on the link for ticket information. We will see you there.